Hello and welcome to Portimao, the Autodromo Internacional de Algarve in Portugal, just a stone's throw away from Faro, the very popular airport for holidays in the Algarve. We're here at the Portimao circuit. It is 4.692 kilometers long and is some 250 kilometers south of Portugal's capital. It has... That is 14 corners. Sorry, I had to do a bit of math there. It is 14 corners in total. And it always throws up absolutely astounding racing, as there are some tight and twisty corners, as you can see there at the start of the lap, then some more long sweeping corners, especially at the end of the lap, absolutely beautiful. And then there's elevation changes throughout, which make it a favourite for all the riders. They really love riding this circuit. Today it plays host to the FIMCV Repsol, where we will witness a total of 5 races. We've already had one. We're now getting ready for the second race of the day. That is the first of 2 races in the FIMCV Repsol Moto2 European Championship of 2016. And this one is going to be absolutely incredible because we have a championship not on the line in this race, but this race will set up and paint a picture for the second race where Steven Odendaal has the potential to become the first ever South African Moto2 European champion. He's been in incredible form all year. I should also say that my name is Harry Lloyd, and joining me in the booth for all of today is MotoGP.com's news editor, Fran Wild. This Moto2 class has been so exciting all year, but it has been Steven Odendaal who has come out a step above the rest. It's just been his consistency. Now, tell us a little bit about who can really challenge him. I believe that it is Alain Tescher, the French rider, who's the only one who can mathematically stop him this weekend.
Exactly. It's just down to the 2 of them now. So it would need a fairly disastrous day for Alain Tescher to be able to sort of lose the championship effectively here. But with so few races remaining now, we are in the part of the season now where every point counts.
Exactly. As we say, there are 2 races here today. There are 2 more rounds, but at each of those rounds, they will only have 1 race each in the Moto2 class. So Steven Odendaal, he currently has a 48-point difference, a 48-point lead over Alain Tescher. And with 2 races left after the second race here a bit later today, he can potentially wrap up the title after that second race. So basically, he needs to leave, Steven Odendaal needs to leave the second race having scored 2 more points than Alain Tescher. So a double victory would certainly cement Steven Odendaal as the 2016 champion. But it is this man here who could throw a bit of fire into the midst. Tatsuka Nagashima on pole position. He had a bit of a nasty crash in Valencia, which is why you see those 2 blanks there. But since then, he has really, really been strong. He hasn't quite been able to keep up with Steven Odendaal, but he just keeps getting faster and faster. As you can see there, it is also his 2nd pole position of the year. He's one to watch because, you know, if he can get ahead of Odendaal, then with Odendaal in 2nd and Tescher in, you know, potentially 3rd, those 2 fighting, it really does make the math a bit more complicated. As we said, for this race, we won't worry about it because basically no matter what happens, there is still a chance that, in theory, Alain Tescher could come back even if he DNFs. But here is the man, ice cold, Steven Odendaal. I was talking to him this morning. He's not really worried about it. He didn't really know any of the math to win the championship. I asked him about it, partly to try and clarify it on my point, because I thought maybe his team would have told him. They haven't. He's just focused on going out there and winning more and more races. As I said, he has been the class of the field. He's had 4 race wins. He's been off the podium only once in Barcelona when he had a slow puncture rear. Here is the man who can stop him, Alain Tescher. Look at that, beautiful consistency, 3rd, 2nd, 3rd, 2nd. But it is that double DNF in Barcelona. Now, his first DNF in Barcelona was caused by a crash with Dimas Eki, a rider who we'll get to a bit later on the grid. And unfortunately, after that, Alain Tescher was unable to start the second race. He's on the NTS Pro bike, which is a bike out of Japan, not the much favoured Kalex machine that most of the guys run. So he is working with some different equipment, but that was Alain Tescher's first front row of the year. He had previously been in 4th 3 times, but now we come to Augusto Fernandez, who has been a revelation this year. He's a rookie in this championship, but as you can see, apart from some blips, he's been incredible, and he's really been the best of the race. You know, those 3 guys at the front, they've been in this championship for a fair few years, so we sort of expect that speed from them. But Augusto Fernandez, hats off to him. Yet again, another star of the future. We spoke a little earlier about that, unfortunately, the Superbike class in this championship will be no more. No signs of the Moto2 class going anywhere. It does continue to produce great riders. 23 of the current riders in Moto2 are from the CEV, or 67%. Here is a man who will be hoping to go back to the World Championship, Eric Granado. He had such a strong start to the year in Valencia, then a massive high side in race 2, and just hasn't been able to find his form again. He was another one who we were really expecting to be in the title hunt, but ever since that crash, his consistency just hasn't been there, and it's been a bit of a head scratcher to watch, in all honesty. But hopefully he can find his pace again and can come on strong, you know, either to secure a good ride for next year or to potentially move back to the World Championship. Here we go, Federico Fellini. He's been out for 3 months. He's missed 5 races because, unfortunately, in Aragon, he was caught up in an oil spill in, I believe it was Q1, and went down and broke some vertebra. He was meant to wildcard in the World Championship as well. He's had to miss those, but he is now back fully fit, obviously with a back injury. You don't want to rush it at all. So really good that he did take his time with that one. He has qualified in 6th place. Really good considering he has been off the bike for so long. And yet another guy who could mix it in those top 6. You know, it's going to be interesting to see if anyone can stick with Odendal. Odendal has had some good results here in the past. He was able to keep up with the likes of Pons and Vierge last year when those 2 guys were the class of the field, but he's also had 1 or 2 crashes here. And here's another one, like Augusto Fernandez, Samuel Cavalieri, the young Italian, just 19 years old there, has blown a bit hot or cold, but as we can see from Valencia and from Aragon, he does have the speed there, and definitely one to watch. He's aboard the Team Stylo bike, again on a Kalex. Of the top 10, 8 are Kalexes. We have the NTS NH6 of Alan Tesher in 3rd, and the Tech 3 bike in 4th with Augusto Fernandez on us. Interestingly enough, just a quick comment on the times of the grid. Nagashima's 1:45.602 would have put him 2nd on the Superbike grid here today, and then Odendal's time would have put him 3rd. There is Dimas Eki, the young Indonesian rider, getting stronger and stronger with each race. In fact, all of the top 10 in this class, including Dimas Eki, would have qualified above the 3rd place man in Superbikes. So these guys are really properly quick. Obviously, these are Grand Prix machines, but they're still Moto2 bikes, which means that they're on a 600cc Honda engine, which is 400cc less, obviously, than most of the Superbikes. Obviously, the Ducati is a bit more due to its engine configuration. But these guys really, really quick. So much talent in this field. As we said, 67% of current Moto2 riders have raced in the SEV at some time. 72% of riders in the MotoGP class right now have raced in SEV. Not all of them in the Moto2 class, but at some point they have all raced here. Former champions in this class include Edgar Pons and Jesco Raffin and Jordi Torres, to name just a few. Here is another really young, really quick, really talented, really exciting guy. Iker Lecuona, Basque rider, Spain, the Basque region obviously in Spain. He's just 16 years old. He has perhaps the most sideways riding style I have ever seen. He has qualified in 9th here today. Pretty solid result from him, continuing to learn the Moto2 trade. As he is so young, still plenty of time for him to get up to speed and challenge for those wins. Then another Asian rider, even though this is the Moto2 European Championship, a huge mix of nationalities. Ramdan Rosley, 20 years old, on the Petronas AHM Malaysia bike. He's qualified in 10th place. He didn't take part in Q1, but set a 1:47.369 in Q2, and again, he would have been above 3rd place in the Superbike class, so good for him. He's had a few World Championship wildcards, so that name may sound familiar to you. Speaking of wildcards, Stephen Odendal does look set to wildcard in the World Championship at Aragon later this year, so be sure to look out for Stephen Odendal when he goes there. Here's another man who's having a great weekend, Max Enderlein on the Stratos DVR Racing Kalex, the German rider, 19 years old, looking to get a couple more points and hopefully return to the top 10 this weekend. Starting from 11th place, he is in prime position to do so. As we said, that Stratos team, this bike in particular, not sponsored by Leopard, but most of their other bikes are, so that's why it does have a bit of a different colour scheme. In total, I think they have 7 riders across all the classes, so the Leopard Stratos team are incredibly busy, but luckily Max Enderlein does have a fair bit of focus on him. Number 46, no, it's not Valentino Rossi, it's Marcel Brenner. He's on the Team Nobby 43 Talusar bike, number 46 there, the Swiss rider. He's gotten in the points a fair few times, obviously running that famous 46. And there with a Louis Salom sticker, as we say. You know, this is a really tight-knit community here, and most of these guys did at some point race with Louis Salom, and everyone was hit really hard. They are still going out there to do honour to Louis Salom. Here we go with the grid. Tetsuka Nagashima ahead of Stephen Oendal. Alan Tesher rounds out the front row. Augusto Fernandez in 4th ahead of Eric Granado. Federico Fellini back from injury ahead of fellow Italian Samuel Cavalieri. Demas Ecchi in 8th place. Then Iker Lecuona in 9th place. All those top 9 guys do have the potential to finish on the podium. A lot of 146s there. As we can see, Nagashima and Oendal in the 145s. But this is a full race. We have gotten the track temperature in. It is 39 degrees out there on track. Quite warm. Ramdan Rosley will be used to that coming from Malaysia ahead of Max Enderlein, Marcel Brenner, Gabriel Ruhu, Jason Uribe, the American, Xavi Cardlos, number 15, or 15th there, Thomas Sigvartsen in 16th. Ivo Peixo ahead of Sosipto there. Both of those guys are in the stock 600 class. We'll talk about that in a second. Guillermo Raymond there in 21st over Roman Fischer, Thibaut Gorin, Miguel Poyatos, Lucas Tvolknik, and then Pontus Durland, number 71, the bright green bike, the Swede, bringing up the rear. So all of the riders have gone for the same tyre options. So tyre life will be purely down to how they ride. No one risking it with anything out of the ordinary. We see this so often in Moto2. So it will all be about what they can do, how they can nurse those tyres, who can go easiest, who has the pace at the end of the race. In morning warm-up, it was Stephen Oendal who was fastest, the only rider in the 146s. Eric Granado, interestingly enough, in 2nd with a 147 in warm-up. Then Nagashima, Cavalieri, and Augusto Fernandez, all with incredibly close times. Unfortunately, Alan Tesher was 6th in warm-up. A new little nose piece there to his his NTS machine that has a new air intake there. So as I was saying before, there is also a stock 600 championship within this championship, and it is Ivo Miguel Peixo Lopez who leads that on the Kawasaki. That is a Kawasaki 600 bike, the same you'd find in a World Supersport or British Supersport grid. There you can see a couple of the Kawasaki's filtering around now. Sosipto, he switched over the Kawasaki. He was on the Honda. Those guys will be battling for honours in that championship. Then you also have Roman Fischer. He's involved in that battle. Thibaut Gurin, number 10. He's on the Yamaha. And all those guys, as we said, will be battling. They have their own championship points, and the winner of that little sub-race will take a trip up to the podium. You know, it is Grand Prix machines versus production machines, but we saw last year Marcos Ramirez, he was racing in the stock 600 class, and he was regularly challenging some of the big names in Moto2 as we see them continue to filter around for their warm-up lap. It's set to be a great one, as we said, 39 degrees ground temperature and then 32 degrees air temperature. Quite pleased we're in this air-conditioned booth. That does seem quite warm, and I forgot to bring my sunscreen this weekend, so good that I'm not going a lovely shade of pink.
I think definitely. I think it's always better to stay with the aircon if it's available to you. Unfortunately, it probably would slow them down a little bit.
Yes, exactly. You know, that is the other thing. All of these guys and girls are going out there and pushing so hard and doing such incredible things. As we said, this is the first of 2 Moto2 races here. Oendal could become champion in that second race, but we'll worry about that hurdle when we come to it. The second race is at 3 p.m. local time or 2 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. This race will be 17 laps, as will the second one. 17 laps of drama, action, and excitement coming up for you here as they make their way to the grid. If you ever want to come along to a CV, it is free, so come and watch. As we said, we will be in Jerez and Valencia. More details about those dates on the FIMCV Repsol website, and I'll also say them at the end of this broadcast, so be sure to have your pen and paper ready. But here they are on the grid. Tension beginning to build for all those riders. Last little check that everything is done up. His gloves are on nice and tight for Nagashima. He's really good at starts. Nagashima is definitely one to watch, but can Oendal slide it up the inside into turn one. It is a right-hander, so Odendal does have the inside of the track advantage there in second place. Then third for Alan Tesher. He needs to beat Stephen Odendal. That's going to be one really important battle to watch, is between Odendal and Tesher. What happens with him? The lady with the red flag continues to stand there. They are waving the green flag at the back, so it is all good to go. The red flag walks away. We're going to get ready. The lights will go on, and when they go off, we will be underway for 17 laps. The red lights are on, and here we go. Get ready for drama. A great start there from Stephen Odendal. He had a bit of a lurch, but otherwise all okay. Not the best start from Nagashima, but he does slide into second place ahead of Alan Tesher. Is Tesher going to go through on the brakes? No. An incredible start from Demas Eki there, up into third place from the Indonesian. Runs a bit wide. Tesher is able to get through, but already Stephen Odendal has a nice bit of advantage over Nagashima, and Tesher really needs to start working hard to get past him. A great start from Odendal's teammate Jason Uribe as well, up inside the top 10. It looks like Eric Granado's having to deal with Augusto Fernandez there. Fernandez, they're not going to give up any ground. Hyper, oh, huge moment there from Nagashima. Gets sent wide. Can he hang on to second place? He can somehow. Not sure how he hung on to second place there. Oh, a twitch from Tesher as well. These boys are going all over the shop. And it's Odendal as well. Clearly track conditions not the best. All of these guys moving around a lot. They're going to have to be really careful, because if they're already having twitches like this, it's going to be a very, very long race. Look at all those bikes just moving around. It must be like ice as they wheelie over the crest there. What an absolutely beautiful sight.
That's just incredible to watch them all on track together as well in such kind of close formation in the early laps of the race. It's just amazing. It really kind of makes it sink in a lot more, the elevation changes of the track. I don't think it really, you often say this with a lot of tracks with really famous corners that are steep or whatever, but I think here the whole track is just completely on different levels, and I think until you really see it, it's hard to really make that sink in.
Yeah, exactly. It is complete undulation, as you can see, as they come around turn 14 there, as they make their way towards the line for the first time. Alan Tesher does seem to be pretty comfortable in third, but he needs to get ahead of Stephen Odendal. This is the important thing. He needs to finish ahead of Stephen Odendal, or he has to hope that Odendal has some sort of problem, but it is Stephen Odendal who does lead across the line, just over half a second ahead of Nagashima. A 1:48.3 from Stephen Odendal does put him ahead of the Japanese rider. Alan Tesher in third place. Augusto Fernandez in fourth. Great start from Ika Lukono. From 9th to 5th, Eric Granado drops down to 6th place. Demas Eki up to 7th place. He did make a good start, but has now settled down into the order. Samuel Cavalieri, he's doing well as well in 8th, just ahead of Jason Uribe in 9th position. Slightly less drama this time they come around. Not as many twitches. Augusto Fernandez looking up the inside of Alan Tesher. Tesher needs to hope that Augusto Fernandez doesn't get a bit ambitious. Again, the bike moving around under Alan Tesher on that MTS bike. As we said, mostly raced in Japan. This is its first time racing in the for a full season. It has had some wild cards in the Moto2 World Championship. Didn't do particularly well there, but Tesher has had some pretty solid results. But he now has to deal with two young up-and-comers. They both have nothing to lose. Augusto Fernandez, number 37, and then number 7, Ika Lukono. Fernandez looks up the inside. Can he get it through? He does get it through. Will Tesher be able to get the cut back? No, it doesn't look like. Fernandez then, can he defend his line? He does. Beautiful work there from the young Spanish rider to defend himself from Tesher. Tesher continuing to through. He needs to get past. I cannot stress this enough. He needs to finish ahead of Stephen Odendal. If Odendal wins this race and Tesher finishes down in 5th place potentially, then it's just a matter of Odendal picking up, or just finishing the race at some point in that second race. Because as we said, with 2 races after this, as long as Odendal has 50 points or more after the second race, then he will be the Moto2 European Championship. And going about and winning this first race, as he's doing now, is exactly what he needs to do. It does look like Tesher has been able to get back ahead of those 2 youngsters there. Meanwhile, Stephen Odendal does have Nagashima breathing down his neck. Ika Lukono has moved up into, 4th place ahead of Augusto Fernandez, with Tesher potentially in 3rd. That first sector does tighten them all up. Augusto Fernandez looking for a way around the outside. Can he line up something into the cut back? No, he can't. It is still Lukono who is in 4th place. Using all of the track there to try and gain on Alan Tesher. He needs to be careful. That could easily be a penalty. We do have confirmation there were no jump starts, so that's all very good as well. Nagashima there with a 146.712. That was almost half a second faster on Stephen Odendal that last lap. It definitely looks like Odendal is a bit stronger in the opening part of the lap through that first section, turns 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But it does now look like Nagashima is starting to close up as they fight the bike, try and push that front wheel down as they come over the crest.
I think the no-jump starts is quite impressive, given the lights really weren't on for very long. It seemed to really catch a lot of the grid out.
Yeah, that was definitely a very, very quick start. I wasn't paying too much. I can't remember what they were like in the Superbike race, but it seemed like they were on for longer than that. We'll have to see what happens in Moto3 coming up after this one. But right now, it is all about this battle for third place. Still not quite as hot a battle for first place, but Lukawana right on Tesh's tail. Nothing to choose between those two. Lukawana, of course, never had a podium before. He's the sort of guy, if you're Alan Tesher and you're fighting for a championship, you really don't want him behind him, because he's the sort of guy who will give it all into the last corner, and it looks like he was going to get the better drive onto the straight. We'll cut back to them shortly, but it is Stephen Oundal, the championship leader, who does lead this race. Oundal, 136 points right now, could potentially have 25. Lukawana gets ahead of Tesher, sideways all over the shop as he fights to get that Calic stop, but he does. Excellent. Meanwhile, Stephen Oundal has now responded to Nagashima, but Nagashima's back right with him. Nothing to choose between those two at the front. It does look like Nagashima ran a bit wide there and has unfortunately caused himself to lose that ground that he did open up to Stephen Oundal. Oundal nice and in control there. Tesha now trying to get back past number 7 there, young Ika Lukawana. Can he do it? Can he hang on to his championship with just a glimmer of hope? As we said, there will be 75 points on offer after this race. Oundal does currently have a 48 points difference. So even if he were to win this race and Tesha were to DNF, he cannot mathematically walk away with the title. It would only be 2 points. Oh, look at that. This is not good news for Tesha. He's getting forced back and back and back. It is Ika Lukawana who does control third place. He does manage to wrestle it back past Augusto Fernandez. But Fernandez is right on the back of Tesha still, and this is not what Tesha needs. He does not need to get bullied around by two young up-and-coming Spanish talents, and he should be ahead of Stephen Oundal. It looks like Tesha's chance for victory has escaped him this race, and he will be hoping that Nagashima can get ahead of Stephen Oundal and reduce that points difference just a little bit.
Yeah, I think this is really the worst nightmare when you're in a title fight and then you end up with two guys who have really nothing to lose in the race, and they're only interested in the result on the race and basically just want to be in front of you and don't really, you know, they have no interest in your title.
Exactly.
So it's a tough battle. It's a tough battle, and I think it's also a tough mental game to not get too frustrated and, you know, start thinking like you don't need to be involved in this or whatever. Just stay calm, try and get past them, make it stick, and then try and cut the gap to the front.
Yeah, Tesha there, he tried a bit of a look up the inside of the number 7 bike, but he couldn't make it stick. Not the best. He's going to have to wait and do it all again. Ika Lukawana seems to be really good through these longer, more sweeping corners. He does seem to have the edge on Tesha. Meanwhile, Augusto Fernandez continues to loom there in 5th place, just behind Tesha, just waiting for his chance to attack. Stephen Oundal continues to lead this race with Nagashima half a second behind, but this battle for third is where a lot of the excitement is, as we say. Looks like Nagashima is getting dropped. Tesha doing the best he can to stay with the likes of Ika Lukawana. He hasn't really been able to make any moves. He's good under braking, he really closes up there, but better corner speed, looks like better exit for Ika over Alan Tesha there. As we say, he is on that MTS machine. Different from the Tech 3, different from the Calyx. Bit of an unknown. They're still developing that bike. As I said, it does have a new air intake. Meanwhile, Eric Granado here in 6th place, just ahead of Dimas Eki, doing his best to keep the Indonesian rider at bay. Granado is currently in the championship. He's currently 4th in the championship, so he would probably stay there given the current results. But it is all about the championship battle. It is all about that man in the middle of that sandwich. The French filling to that Spanish sandwich. Alan Tesha, number 89, that bright yellow number plate on the red bike. He's still just stuck with them. Can't get past them. Can't escape them. Really, really tough for him. And right now, if the race were to end as this, Stephen Oundal would walk away with a 60-point lead, which would mean more or less that in the second race, Tesha would have to finish in 5th place or higher with Oundal not scoring any points. However, as I've been doing the math for that, it does look like Nagashima briefly closed up on Oundal, but Oundal then continues just to pull away. Nagashima's definitely closer. Nagashima really strong mid-corner, it looks like, on his IO-backed Kalex, whereas Oundal does seem to have the pace out of the corners on that AGR bike. Obviously, AGR also have a World Championship team with them, or alongside this Sev team. We used to have the Pons team in this championship, but now that Sito Pons has brought all of his sons through, he thought, no more point to that one. Nagashima drifts up into the lead there. Was that a problem from Stephen Oundal? It looked like he had a bit of a look behind his shoulder. This is not what the South African needs. It is now Nagashima who leads this race. 20 points would not be the end of the world for Stephen Oundal.
I think he was probably just very surprised by that. It came out of nowhere for us almost. The gap's been fluctuating a lot over the last couple of laps, but they are now quite clear of the battle for P3.
Meanwhile, speaking of P3, Alan Tesha has moved up into P3, so this could be good. This could be only 4 points gain for Stephen Oundal. So there is still some hope for Alan Tesha, but we still have a long way to go, 11 laps, and it does look like Stephen Oundal is with Nagashima. I'm not sure what it could be. Oundal has gotten unlucky with tyres before. He had a slow puncture in race 1 of Barcelona, and then in race 2 he had a very badly chunking tyre. So maybe he has some issue with his tyre, because it does now seem like Nagashima is pretty comfortable. Bit of movement there from Stephen Oundal on his Kalex as well. Number 45 versus number 44. It is Japan's Nagashima who leads Oundal. Both of these riders are former Grand Prix racers, did have some runs in Moto2, but came back to the Sev because both of them felt that they had stepped up a bit too early. And, you know, Oundal himself is willing to admit that. Great there from Oundal. He does seem to be really strong through this middle part of the lap. Now back right with Nagashima. As you can see, that last lap, 0.7 of a second slower for Stephen Oundal, so that's clearly why Nagashima was able to close up that gap. They just keep accordioning up, you know, closing up and then expanding out, closing up and then expanding out. This race is far from over. Will Oundal do what Nagashima did to him a lap before and surprise him into these last couple of corners? Or will it be Nagashima who does defend his lead? It looks like it will be Nagashima who does defend his lead as they build up to go across the line. Nagashima 3 seconds ahead of Alan Tesha, so Tesha really needs to find a bit of magic there. Not sure what his gap is over the likes of Liccarona and Fernandez, but he will be happy in 3rd place because, as we say, that is damage limitations. It could be so much worse. Is Oundal having a look? No, that battle for 3rd place is still tight as anything, and Oundal is still right in contention. It is Augusto Fernandez who has moved up into 4th place, now getting ready to hassle Alan Tesha. Stephen Oundal right up the pipe of Nagashima there, basically smelling his fumes. Oh, a bit of a movement there from Augusto Fernandez, number 37, on that Tech 3 machine. Not had much success in the World Championship. His foot slides off the foot pad there. Careful, mate. You don't want to be doing that. Nothing to choose. Meanwhile, it does look like Granado and therefore Dimas Eki are also gaining on this battle for 3rd. Granado is quite good with the tyre life, so he could also throw a bit of spice into this. Stephen Oundal continues to be right with Nagashima there. Nothing to choose between these two. We have seen lap times fluctuate a bit. Conditions, as we said, creeping ever closer to 40 degrees on track. So it is going to be a bit tricky for tyre life. There is one of Nagashima's crew in there. Nagashima is part of the IO Academy, so that bike does have several of the IO team members who have helped Johan Zarco be so successful. That's why the liveries are quite similar as well. And that has been a huge boost to Nagashima this year, being able to step into that IO squad. So much consistency there for him, and his results have flourished as a result. And meanwhile, in 3rd, it does look like Alan Tesha is still holding off Fernandez. But what can Stephen Oundal do? He seems to be able to close up on so many occasions, but then when it comes to the end of the lap, just can't get there on Nagashima, unfortunately. A Japanese rider has never won in this class, so that could potentially be on the cards, as again we see all the track used as Alan Tesha slips back past Augusto Fernandez on the run down into turn 1. No movements from the leaders there. Is there going to be anything happening in this battle for third? No, it is Alan Tesher who does hold on to third place ahead of Augusto Fernandez, but you can guarantee that both Fernandez and number 7, Lequano, will be attacking soon. Looks like Lequano had to stand up a bit there. That is the thing about the turn 1, 2, and 3 combination, is it is so tight. You can really, really force riders to stand up, and especially after that long straight with that long sweeping right hand at turn 15, it can be a bit confusing and a bit difficult for some of the riders to get their braking markers right, but no worries about that. Nice tight battles here for first and for third. Lequano dropping back a couple of bike lengths, but still nothing to choose between Augusto Fernandez and Alan Tesher. France versus Spain. No, it's not the football, it's the Moto2 European Championship. Tesher there continuing to fight the front of his machine. Looks like he has opened up just the tiniest bit of breathing room, but as I say that, under braking Augusto Fernandez, really, really strong on the Tech 3 machine. Last lap, these guys were 3 seconds behind the guys battling for the lead. It will be interesting to see if they have slowed up, if Nagashima is altering his lines and therefore slowing up Odendal, because Odendal has been having a poke or two at Nagashima. Meanwhile, this battle for third is absolutely thrilling, with Alan Tesher just holding off Augusto Fernandez. Fernandez will be more than happy to wait for the last lap and try something, and that's why Tesher really needs to try and break away, get some clear room ahead of him, because the slipstream can play a huge factor, especially with a straight this long. It does look like Nagashima has managed to ease open a bit of a gap over Odendal there, just under half a second, 0.463. Meanwhile, those guys battling for third are still 3 seconds back on this leading duo. There's no need for Stephen Odendal to stress. Second place would still be more than helpful for him, which could potentially promote him to 156 points, which against Alan Tesher's potential 104 points would still be enough. As we said, he just does need to leave the second race with a 50-point advantage over Alan Tesher, because even if they were tied and Alan Tesher were to go on to win the next 2 races, Tesher would be unable to match Odendal's number of wins. So even though they could, in theory, match on points, Odendal would be the championship winner on virtue of wins, and that's what you want from a champion. You want the guy who has not only got the most points, but also won the most races. That's exactly what Odendal is trying to do here. Bit of a rundown through the board. As we say, Alan Tesher is in third place ahead of Augusto Fernandez. Iko Lequano still in 5th place ahead of Eric Granado. Demas Eki doing well in 7th place. Good result there on the cards for the Indonesian rider. Samuel Cavalieri, great 8th place from him. Marcel Brenner in 9th. Ramdan Rosley strong in 10th. Gabriel Ruhu in 11th. Federico Fellini on his first race back from injury has dropped down the field to 12th. Not too bad, though, considering what he has been through. Xavi Carlos in 13th. Max Enderlein in 14th. Thomas Sigvartsen rounds out the potential points. And then it is Rafid Topan Sisipto who does lead that stock 600 class in 17th place ahead of Ivan Miguel Lopez. And it is Stephen Odendal who does take the lead yet again as they come down into turn 1. Great move there by the South African to get ahead of Nagashima. You know, Odendal clearly feels confident if he's pushing ahead of Nagashima like that, but Nagashima slams it right back up his inside. No love lost between them. Odendal's going to have to work if he wants this race win, that's for sure.
I think it's great to see Odendal obviously still really wanting the victory. He's not really out there thinking about the championship. You said before, the team haven't told him, or he's not really aware exactly what he needs to do to be the champion. And he's still out there on the track going for the victory rather than just doing the maths in his head and having a safe ride on the Sunday.
Exactly, that is exactly what we like to see from Stephen Odendal. 7 laps to go. He is still within touching distance of Nagashima, these two. Both pretty evenly matched. This is an incredible ride from Nagashima. Easily the best ride I've seen from the Japanese rider so far this year. As we said, he has been in podium contention a fair few times. This is his first real earnest push for victory, and he is doing an incredible job of it, keeping Stephen Odendal, a veteran of this class, honest. And hopefully both of them will have bright and successful futures in the World Championship, especially given these rides. Odendal closing back up again. Neither of them able to get a clear, distinct advantage. You know, a couple of bike lengths is all it is. and then as soon as they go through a different section, they are able to close right back up. It does look like Augusto Fernandez and Alan Tesher have broken away from Lukawona and those other guys a tiny, tiny bit. Here comes Stephen Ondale. What can he do in the slipstream? Does his Calex have the pace? It looks like he broke out of the slipstream pretty early there. Can he do something on the brakes? There is the team watching on, and it does look like Ondale has done it yet again. Has he? No, not quite close enough. Nagashima leaves it later on the brakes, and Ondale is forced to stay in second place behind the Japanese star. But he's still right with him. That battle is going to go down the line, no doubt. Ondale, every time he does run across that line, he will be, taking in information. All of these guys are incredible racers. They're not just going as fast as they can. Strategy does play a part. Ondale will know exactly where he needs to go for that last lap if he does need to drag to the line. We still have 6 laps to go, so that is still a little distance away, but he's still keeping right with Nagashima there. We can say almost identical lap times, under a 10th of a second, splitting those to the last lap. It is still Nagashima who does, Ondale who does have the fastest lap of the race so far, a 146.442. So those 148s that they were putting in is quite a distance off what they were doing at the start. Clearly the battling and the heat and the tyres are all affecting them in their lap times. Although having said that, Alan Tesher, who is now still in 3rd place, not been able to make any inroads, still 3 seconds behind these two. Solid work there from Nagashima, continuing to just open up a couple of bike lanes. But I'm sure that we'll see it again. It seems like Ondale is just so strong through these last couple of corners and is usually able to get a good run onto the line. And here we see the battle for 3rd place. Vital that Alan Tesher finishes as high as he can to try and capitalise on anything that could potentially happen to Stephen Ondale, and just to try and keep the points as close as he can. It does look like he has a tiny bit of breathing room over Augusto Fernandez there. Stephen Ondale right back close with Nagashima again. Fernandez not quite able to make up any room on Alan Tesher there. But in turn, Tesher not able to close that significant 3-second gap to the leading two. Of course, Tesher hasn't just been racing in this championship this year. He has also done some rounds of the World Endurance Championship with the FCC TSR team alongside the likes of Damien Cudlin. Although, of course, since he did have to be here this weekend for his title ambitions, I believe it was World Supersport frontrunner PJ Jacobson who took over in the FCC TSR Honda team. But good to see that Alan Tesher is getting a variety of riding under his belt and keeping as bike fit as possible, because he's going to need it with guys like Augusto Fernandez hassling him for all 17 laps of this thrilling race. As you can see, we are on lap 13 of 17, which means we do have 5 laps still to go. We are here in the Algarve at the wonderful circuit of Portimao, putting on a great race for us with these great facilities, a great circuit. The hills of Portimao are alive with the sound of a thrilling Moto2 European Championship race. Augusto Fernandez there with a big sniff up the inside of Alan Tesher. Can't quite make any move stick, but he is showing him a front wheel, saying, hey, I'm here, don't you forget about me, I'm gonna slide it up your inside at some point. So brace for that one, because it's probably gonna come at the least opportune time for Alan Tesher. They build up for the line yet again. There you can see that big uphill ramp onto the straight. The straight then does dip back down for turn 1. Stephen Ondale again has a look on the brakes but can't do anything. 0.2, just a quarter of a second there, separating him from Nagashima. When they cross the line, it's much closer than that through the tight and twisties. Have to be really careful when you get on the power there. Don't want to get on too early, or you can so easily flick yourself off, but no such issues for Nagashima and Ondale as they continue to spar at the front. Federico Fellini, for those Italians who may be watching, he has now dropped down to 14th place, so clearly some fitness issues for him there. It looks like Demas Eki has managed to get ahead of Eric Granado for 6th place. Speaking of Augusto Fernandez, great little slide there to get up the inside of Alan Tesher and potentially move into a first podium finish. Not what Alan Tesher needs at all. 101 points here could be what Alan Tesher walks away with from this race if he finishes where he does. what could happen here? Looks like Fernandez is opening. That's quite a significant gap. That looks like that's already a third of a second has opened up between Tesha and Fernandez. Tesha's going to have to work really hard to try and stick with him, because if the race were to finish as is, Odell would walk away with 156 points and Tesha would walk away with 101 points. Therefore, Tesha would need to win the race and Odell would need to finish third or lower in the second race if it were to finish like that. But based on that move there, it does look like Odell does still have the intention of winning at the forefront of his mind as they come side by side down the home straight. Quick look across at each other, they're neck and neck. What's going to happen into turn one? The team look on anxiously. It does look like Odell has the lead as they begin braking, but Nagashima so late on the brakes and swoops around the outside. Beautiful from the IO rider. But Odell has proved that he has the pace. Odell again looking up the inside of Nagashima. Is there anything he can do on this lap? No, not quite. Is it going to be best just wait until the end and try and do something then? Avoid any risks. As we say, second would not be the end of the world for Stephen Odell. But he's staying right with him. Augusto Fernandez continues to try and push ahead of Alan Tesha as Tesha does try and cling on to the podium and any title hopes that he may have. They were distant when this round began, but they were still there. 3 seconds back for those guys battling for third place. Lecuona, of course, has now dropped off on that battle. He is pretty comfortable in 5th place. Rear wheels continuing to lift in the air over that wonderful crest there. Beautiful sight. If you're a photographer, make sure you're standing right there, because I can guarantee that at least 1 or 2 people will buy those shots. Bit of a wider line there from Stephen Odell than Nagashima. Nagashima taking a tight line, no doubt worrying about a bit of an attack from Stephen Odell. Odell taking those wider lines to try and carry a bit more corner speed through, try and line something up as we've seen so often in this final part of the circuit. Up around, here we go, the penultimate corner, that is long right-hander. It's all about right-handers. They do this one. Sages, and then it's into the Gallop corner, turn 15, incredibly long, on the side of the tyre for so long. Tesh is going to have to pull out something special in these last 3 laps, because that's a very, very significant gap that Augusto Fernandez now has. He will not be feeling any of that slipstream, maybe just getting the final last little kisses of it, but that was great drive there from Tesha. He was able to close up thanks to that incredible drive. Can he do something into the first corner? He's going to try. Has he left it too late, or can he get it stopped? He does manage to get it stopped, but not quite enough. He does run just the tiniest bit wide, which does allow Augusto Fernandez to slide his Tech 3 bike back into 3rd spot. They're still fighting Alan Tesha. This race is far from over. This podium is in no way decided. With fighting this fierce, anything could happen. Meanwhile, Demas Eki, it does look like he has now broken a second clear of Eric Granado. So Granado pretty lonely in 7th. Not the best result from him, but a great ride from Demas Eki, the Indonesian rider, in a potential 6th place finish. Tesha just continuing to try and keep the gap constant between Fernandez. He knows he can probably do it on the line if he can replicate that incredible drive. We do have 2 laps to go. It is still all on the line, both for 1st place and for 3rd place here. Bikes continuing to move around a little bit. Tyres will be continuing to drop off. Look at that movement from Tesha's bike. Wobble, wobble, wobble as he goes through. Looks like Nagashima does still have just a bit of advantage over Stephen Odendal. This will be the best dress rehearsal we have for the final lap. Of course, for the final lap, it will all be about the run to the line. So if you can make a big move down into turn 1, now is your chance to do it, because you won't get another chance after this. Here we go, following this crucial battle for 3rd place as they round the penultimate corner. There we see the battle for 1st coming around the 1st corner. Odendal is a fair bit back, but this last corner is deceptive. You can carry so much corner speed, and the drive can be incredible. Bit of a wobble there from Odendal as he gets onto the straight. He's gaining. Can he do anything? The last lap is underway, side by side for 3rd place as well. Odendal can't quite do anything into the 1st corner. It does look like Tesha has gotten ahead of Augusto Fernandez. Once again, he does make the move stick this time. It looks like he runs it out a bit wide, slightly tighter there from Augusto Fernandez, but Tesha did have the speed to stay ahead of him, potentially on for 3rd. There's still over half a lap to go. Augusto Fernandez really close to Tesha here, looking for a way around the outside, cuts back on the inside. Can he do anything? Meanwhile, Stephen Odendal continues to look on Nagashima. This is going to be a great end to the race. There's still nothing to choose between any of these top 4 riders. All of them could still potentially finish on or off the podium if there is some huge drama. It is the number 45 of Nagashima who leads the number 44 of Stephen Oundal. It is Japan versus South Africa in the Moto2 European Championship. What can Oundal do? They are so close. Yet again, Oundal looks like he's just waiting for a moment. Those bikes wobbling around all over the place. Oundal likes it nice and loose, more of an old school Moto2 style. We've seen the Moto2 style get a lot more in line in the World Championship, but Oundal still happy to have it sliding around. He has to look up the inside, but no. Nagashima carries the speed around the outside to defend, both very sideways as they come into that corner. Okay. Stephen Oundal is running out of opportunities now. They are into the final complex. Can he do it? It's all going to be about the run through the final corner and to the line. Oundal is right with Nagashima. He does. He makes a move into the lead. Nagashima tries to hold it around the outside. It will be about the drag to the line. What can Stephen Oundal do? Can the slipstream benefit him? It does look like excellent drive. Nagashima is off the track. Stephen Oundal is ahead. But can Nagashima now cut back? And it does look like Stephen Oundal has won the race. Excellent result from the South African ahead of Nagashima, with Alan Tesher taking third place. Augusto Fernandez in fourth place. What a race for the leaders there. Demas Eki, great result from him to move up to fifth place. Eric Granado sixth, with Ika Lukawana dropping down to seventh place. Bit of a disappointing result there. So Stephen Oundal had 136 points. He just scored 25 points there. He now has 161 points by my calculations. Meanwhile, Alan Tesher had 88 points. He gets 16 points for third place. So he will now have 104 points. So there are now 59 points separating the two riders. Stephen Oundal has won the race at an average speed of 153.7 kilometers an hour. In the second race coming up a bit later today, realistically, what needs to happen is that Tesher needs to win the race and Oundal needs to finish fourth place or lower for this championship to continue going on. So as long as Stephen Oundal finishes on the podium, he will be your 2016 Moto2 European champion in the next race. But what a great ride from Nagashima as well, able to consistently challenge for victory in that race. As I said, there will be a second race, 3 p.m. local time, 2 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, when they do go and do it all again. Alan Tesher, vital third place for him. Given the circumstances, the best that he could do. Those two guys there, Tesher and Eki, they do share a pit garage, so they are very friendly. Great to see them congratulating each other. Alan Tesher, going to be interesting to see how he feels when he comes back into Parc Fermé, whether his team will brief him on what has occurred or whether he will just know himself. You know, coming into this weekend, it was a mathematical possibility that Tesher could have kept the title fight alive. He still could. It's a long shot, but as we know, anything can happen in racing, and what a race we had. If the remaining now 3 races of the year are that good, then I don't think anyone would mind if Oundal does wrap it up a bit early. The South African there, elated with victory. He has already done part of the job there. So pleased with himself, and of course he should be, because he has done exactly what he needed to do. All he could do is go out there and win the race, and that is exactly what he did. Big wave to the crowd there from Stephen Oundal as he rides his Calax back into Parc Fermé. That is Oundal's 5th win of the year. There is his team, happy to congratulate him, and now we have the race results. What a race it was. I cannot get over how intense that battle was, but it was Stephen Oundal who eventually emerged victorious under a 10th of a second, splitting him and Nagashima from the race victory. Alan Tesher in third was eventually able to break away just from Augusto Fernandez. Demas Eki, great ride from him. 5th place finish. Eric Granado in 6th. Ika Lukawana, bit of a disappointing ride from him to drop down 7th place, but he did have the pace at the start, just needs to work on his pace throughout the race. And Samuel Cavalieri in 8th, and Ramdan Rosley inside the top 10 with a pretty solid 9th place. There is Marcel Brennan, number 46, 10th place for him. Xavier Cardelus, the star of that famous Aragon Fireball, 11th. Max Enderlein, 12th. Gabriel Ruhu, 13th. Federico Fellini back in the points after 3 months off the bike. Thomas Sigvartsen in 15th. Miguel Poyatos in 16th place. David Sanchez in 17th. And it looks like it was Ivo Lopez Peixo who did manage to win that stock 600 race as he crossed the line in 18th place. Stephen Oendal there congratulating Nagashima. Good race between them. That's exactly what we like to see. Hard racing, but no hard feelings when they step off the bike. Very, very pleased there. Stephen Oendal now making his way over to have a chat down there with Fran, who is in Park Fermé for the customary winners interview. Stephen Oendal, always a great interview there. There are 1 or 2 formalities to do first. There we go. Stephen Oendal just having to weigh himself, make sure that everything is legal there. Now hopefully making his way back over. Stephen Oendal, bit of a chat with the bike there as he just makes his way over to the winners interview. And I'm sure we will now go down to hear what the South African had to say about that absolutely incredible race.
So congratulations, that was an amazing win right at the end of the race. How does that feel? And you're even closer to the championship now.
Feels fantastic. Another first position, but truly I got lucky because Nagashima was really on it, and that last corner he ran a bit wide, and I knew, look, I have to take it. I didn't want to take too many risks in the corner, but I'm very happy, and we consolidated another first position, which is really good for the championship hopes. But let's see, race number 2, it's very hot conditions out there, and let's see what we can do. Thanks a lot to my team, AGR, and everyone that's behind me.
Hey, congratulations and good luck in race 2.
Thank you.
Great to see that after so many victories, that still means so much. Here we go. Get ready for drama. A great start there from Stephen Oendal. You know, he was obviously quite hot and flustered from that race. As he said, it is very hot there, but he did make a great start to the race, as did Demas Eki. But then Demas Eki, unfortunately there, the red and white bike ran a bit wide, did allow Alan Tesha up into 3rd place. Oendal had a pretty solid lead at the start, but Nagashima, in the words of Stephen Oendal, was on it all race and did keep the South African very, very honest. As I said, that was probably the best ride I've seen to date from Nagashima, and there was, of course, that incredible battle for 3rd place. Nothing to choose between any of those guys there. Eka Lukona did eventually drop down the order, but he did keep both Augusto Fernandez and Alan Tesha very, very honest. There we can see that battle continue to just swap and swap at the start. Alan Tesha found himself as low as 5th place at some points in the race. But these guys went at it hammer and tongs. Stephen Oendal, what a ride. You know, he said that he got a bit lucky, but you have to put yourself in the position to get lucky, and that's exactly what he did. It does look like, unfortunately, that Stephen Oendal's teammate Jason Uribe crashed out of the race. A bit disappointing from the American, who does have a new rider coach here this weekend. Great ride from Nagashima. You know, he's definitely going to be one to watch in this 2nd race. It was all about that drag to the line, though. Stephen Oendal just getting it. You know, sometimes those tight victories are the best sort of victories. Stephen Oendal so pleased. The team so pleased. What more could you want? A perfect start to the weekend that, as we say, could potentially see him walk away as the champion. But, you know, he himself is staying nice and calm and realistic. There is still a 2nd race. It is scorching hot out there as he climbs up to the podium. Much like with the Super guys a bit before, there won't be too much champagne or Carver drinking. It'll mostly be Carver spraying, as there is a 2nd race. Great to see a Portuguese rider up there, as we said. Ivo Peixo Lopez up there, the leading stock 600 bike. Great to see for the home fans who have come out in their droves to see this race. There are a fair few Portuguese flags that I can spy in the grandstand. There we get the Constructors Trophy from Mr. Arginau himself, who I believe is a famous Spanish chef, a bit like a Spanish Jamie Oliver. I've had him described to me as. But again, I'm not 100% certain on that. I can't say I spent too much time watching cooking shows. There we go for the stock 600 win. A great result there. As we say, that is a separate sub-championship, so their title battle continues to rage on. Now it will be the third place trophy for Alan Tesha as he gets ready to accept that one. Of course, shaking everyone's hand. First and foremost, congratulating everyone because it was a thrilling race. Alan Tesha, not over the moon with that one, you know. I'm sure that he wanted a bit more, obviously, you know, races, they always want first. They want nothing less than first. So Alan Tesha will have to go have a chat with his team. Alan Tesha, of course, still not won a CEV race in the Moto2 class. Still trying to look out for that first victory. Nagashima, they're so close to victory, so close to claiming Japan's first victory, but settles for a solid second place. Great result for him as well, and great result for his championship. You know, he may not be in the title hunt, but he can continue to keep guys like Alan Tesha honest, because although, there we go, the place in second getting the free fuel check once again. I believe that Nagashima may have now actually moved to second place in the championship now that I double check the math. We will have the standings up for you, but it is definitely that man there who does have the lead in the championship. Stephen Odendal, what more could you ask for from the South African? He's done everything that he needs to so far. Now it's all about the second race, but first, the South African national anthem. Motorcycle race fans may not have heard the South African national anthem too much before this year, but between Brad Binder and Stephen Odendal, it has certainly become entrenched in many people's memories. There they go, picking up their helmets for the photo. As we say, there won't be any carver drinking, probably very minimal carver spraying, as they do have to head out there. That second race, which will be live at 3 p.m. local time or 2 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. So be sure to stick around for that one. Check your TV listings, and if it's not on your TV listings, then we are on YouTube on the 7 Repsol. Here we go, time to test my mathematics. I hope that I was right. I believe I said Odendal had 161 points. He does, but it is now Nagashima who moves into second place with 105 points. Tesha with 104, Eric Granado with 89, Augusto Fernandez 5th, Ika Lukwona in 6th place with 59 points. Great result for him. Demis Eki jumps to 7th place out of Thibaut Burton, who's not here this weekend. Ricky Carduce, of course, had that first and that second place on the Transformers bike. He's still in 9th overall. Samuel Cavalieri, solid result from the Italian to cement 10th place. And then 11th place for Xavier Cardelus, Remy Gardner, who's no longer in this series, 12th, Gabriel Ruhu, Jason Uribe, Senna Yamada, Federico Fellini, 16th place ahead of Thomas Sigvarts and Max Enderlein in 18th. Then Ramdan Rosley, slightly disappointing. He's had some really good rides, but only 22 points for the Malaysian ahead of David Sanchez, Louis Rossi, who was with us in Valencia for the start of the year, Marcel Brenner, Pontus Durland, Thomas Gradinger, Jacob Cretaro, who was involved in that big fireball. He is still the leading stock 600 bike in the overall standings, but of course, it's a bit different when you look at the actual stock 600 sub-championship, as they do get 25 points. So as we say, it is all about Stephen Odendal in the second race, but coming up next, we do have the Moto3 Junior World Championship race, just one of those for you today, but it is set to be an absolute barnstormer.